Peace be upon you, the family of history and teaching. The story of a young man exhumed from his grave after 30 years. What did they see in this grave? Subhanallah, a story that gives goosebumps. This is the subject of today. Follow us until the end. Let's begin. A few years ago, approvals came to complete the Abha al-Hijaz road, passing through Bilamar, Tanuma, and Sabal Sibir, until the company in charge of the project reached an area called Shumran. They arrived in this region and this village, and the progress of this company was halted by an old cemetery. The company went to the Shumran court and filed a request for a fatwa regarding the relocation of this cemetery that was preventing the completion of the road. Dear friends, the fatwa was issued by the Committee of Senior Scholars authorizing the relocation of these graves. So they began their work, digging up the graves one by one. They found nothing in these graves but foul odors and remnants of bones. The last person buried in this cemetery had been there for 30 years. Reflect with me on this story. The last person buried in this cemetery 30 years ago. They stopped in front of this grave and began to dig into the earth. Dear friends, live this reality with me. They dug the grave until they reached the shroud and the gravestones. They moved aside these stones, and everyone shouted, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. They found the body in its shroud intact. The shroud was white, and a pleasant and pure scent emanated from it. What can be said about him? They took him out of his grave. They took him out of his grave, and everyone was shouting, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. What was the fortune of this man inside that shroud? They took him out of the grave, then opened the cloth over his face. The notable men of the village and tribe recognized him. This is so-and-so, son of so-and-so. He died 30 years ago. This is so-and-so, son of so-and-so. He died 30 years ago. The sheikh telling this story swears by Allah, his face had not changed. His body was intact. His shroud was intact. They took him and brought him to his father. His father was still alive. They knocked on the door and then brought in the young man. They opened the cloth over his face and placed him in his father's arms. They opened the cloth over his face, and he began to look at him, kiss him, and say, O Allah, how great you are. O Allah, how generous you are. After 30 years, you return him to me without anything having changed. They took him back and changed the location of his grave. Then they returned to see the father and asked him, I swear by Allah, what characterized your son? Why this end? 30 years in his grave without anything changing. 30 years with a pleasant and pure scent, as if he had been buried today or just a few days ago. What characterized him? Listen, young people. Listen to those who neglect prayer. The father said, By Allah, since I have known my son, he has never been late for the opening takbir of prayer, and he has never missed the front row. By Allah, since I have known my son, I have never come to wake him for the dawn prayer without finding him already awake, making his ablutions, and preparing to go for the dawn prayer. He never caused me any difficulties in practicing prayer. He was diligent in his prayers. That is why he remained 30 years in his grave without changing. By Allah, we will only be happy through religion, through obedience, through worship. We will not find happiness in screens, movies, video games, or football matches. The day we fill our hearts with anything other than Allah, we will never be happy. There is no happiness except in obedience, in worship, in closeness to Allah. May Allah soften our hearts, make prayer easy for us, and grant us a good end. Share this video as much as you can. Perhaps it will be a means for someone to return to Allah.